Hey, warm and friendly hello! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peters, and now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We have an excellent podcast for you. We're going to lead things off by talking with one of our good friends, Curtis Rogers. He does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports. More news coming out in college basketball right now. We've got more players becoming eligible. They're entering into the transfer portal in the final segment. I haven't had to do this in quite some time because I thought the transfer portal was done, but apparently it is not. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a roundup of the guys that have entered in the transfer portal, a few guys that have signed with teams. Boy, it is weird to be saying this here in August. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, RCM, naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And I do beg with you, I do plead with you, please do send in these Twitter/X questions. I don't know how long we're going to continue the news that we're getting in college basketball right now, but I know a whole bunch of other guys enter into the transfer portal. We've got ourselves just a comedy of different things are happening in college basketball right now. That's why we've got our guy Curtis aboard, and he's a guy that is out there in the Pacific Northwest. He's out there in Washington, so we're going to be able to address with him what we might be seeing out of the situation that is involving Donovan Dent. We're going to be able to chat with him about the Big Ten and so much more. You're able to follow Curtis on Twitter/X at @KidFromKent. He does a great job over at 710 Seattle Sports. This time of year, he does a lot of Seattle Mariners pre- and post-game hosting. Typically, it's mostly based around baseball this time of year, but this time of year, we've got a lot of college basketball. And before we get to Curtis, by the way, just a little bit of heads up, still doing conference preview podcasts. We're doing low and mid majors right now because I don't think that the MEAC is going to be picking up any of these fifth-year guys, but we'll be doing the MEAC here in the next 24 to 48 hours, and we'll be taking a look at the NEC. We'll be continuing those. It's my job to get you guys set for the greatest college basketball season of all time, so I fully intend on doing so. We're going to have great guests every single day, like our good friend Curtis, who joins me right now. And Curtis, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Greg, always happy to hop on with you, and it feels like in college basketball, the rules change every other day. Everything in college sports changes with each passing moment. Look, everybody's eligible now, and it's crazy seeing all these court cases get finished up here this late into the offseason, but everything changes, and we stay the same, and I guess that's the best we can give the people, right?
Yep, it certainly is. We keep on working, we keep on grinding, and my goodness, what do you make out of all these guys that have become eligible? Because all of a sudden, we have got now hundreds and hundreds of guys that are fighting for eligibility here in August. Some might come back to where they came. Others might be trying to join completely new rosters literally weeks before the start of the season.
It's mind-boggling, but again, with anything dealing with the NCAA, you can't be too surprised. If you just get a single judge to rule in your favor, all of a sudden it opens the doors for every sort of possibility. I mean, we saw with going over to college football, the whole Brendan Sorsby situation in Texas Tech, like that is the one rule you can't break in all of athletics, and he found a judge that was willing to rule in his favor. It feels like these judges are not operating in terms of just kind of like upholding the ethics. They're just kind of like, well, if I can appease my local constituents, then all of a sudden things are going to be much more rosy, in my opinion. I mean, you look at just kind of how the chaos of the portal has been already, and then also the late coaching change at Michigan with Dusty May heading to the NBA. It's just one thing after another. Now, all these teams that have kind of let the portal go by, and you've got these fifth-year guys that are all of a sudden eligible again, I think there could be some teams that are very advantageous for who might be made eligible, especially I look at a program like Gonzaga out here in the Northwest, losing Saint Superi, the point guard who went to go back to Europe to play. All of a sudden now, like what was going to be a huge hole that you probably weren't going to be able to fill heading into the season, now you've got plenty of options.
Yep, you certainly do, and it is going to be really interesting to take a look at how some of these teams operate, because we know this, your guys in Gonzaga, they are right now looking at Donovan Dent. I don't think he officially signed with them, but he entered into the transfer portal with a do not contact tag, so Don't see that very often. And how do you take a look at this Gonzaga team right now? Because they might try to sign another guy as well. We know that they're probably going to be getting Donovan Dent, and that was after Mario Saint Sapri left. So it's a team that we thought was going to have a very quiet offseason. It's now become very loud.
Yeah, and I mean, we know what kind of player Donovan Dent is. He's an impact player for sure. And I think if the Zags are able to get him, that is going to be a big, big addition for what the Zags want to do this year. Especially, coming off of the huge news that St. Superi was not coming back to school. Just, I think, days after attending the unveiling of the Domantas Sabonis workout or athletic center or whatever at Gonzaga, basically their basketball only facility. And then he goes and enters the portal, or not even enters the portal, just withdraws from school, heads back to Europe. It's funny how Gonzaga has kind of been, sort of the last to the ball, as it were, over the last couple of years. Last year with Tyon Grant Foster, the ruling on him, they were kind of waiting deep into the season too, trying to figure out if he would be made eligible or not. But yeah, I think the Zags are in a great spot, Greg, especially if Donovan Dent, who by all accounts is the biggest name available to any program at this current portion of the offseason, like, yeah, sign me up for that. I think that would be a huge addition, especially for a team that is returning a lot of guys. And I think the Zags in the new Pac-12 are going to need to, I think, maybe come with it a little bit harder every single year just based off of the increase in quality of opponent. But I think the Zags are in a good spot if they're able to get Donovan Dent here after the dust settles.
Yep, I think so as well. And that seems to be the way that things are trending. And a team that is very near and dear to us because we both used to work for the official flagship station of the Oregon Ducks. They seem to be tied to Duke Brandon right now. And when I take a look at the landscape of college basketball, I don't know if you agree/disagree. Donovan Dent is a little bit more of an exception, but I feel like it's going to be easier for some of these big men that might be going to a new school rather than the guards because trying to be able to gather a lot of chemistry, be on the same page with your teammates when you join in August and September, it feels like it's a little bit more difficult for a backcourt guy rather than someone that's down low.
I think so, and with the responsibility given to a guard in running the offense and getting everybody up to speed. I mean, the point guard does have the most responsibility of any player out there, that's for sure. You are going to need as many reps in the offseason in order to get everything down pat. And as for a big man, not to say that, like, they're, big O down on the low block and all they need to do is post up or potentially, drift out to 3-point line and knock down a three every now and then. But I would say the responsibility of the point guard, especially in college basketball, might be the biggest one of any player out there on the court. We've seen it time and time again in tournament play. If you don't have good guard play, you're not going deep into the tournament. It helps to have a great big man for sure, but boy, oh boy, you have got to have great guard play. And boy, adding somebody this late into the offseason, it's a risk for sure, but I think it is a risk that some of these teams have to take, especially in the case of Gonzaga, where they're just not an in-house option with the kind of talent that Donovan Dent possesses.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And I think that it's going to be so interesting to take a look at how things are going to be going with that regard. And additionally, I think that's going to be so interesting to take a look at some of these teams that might have unfinished business. And yeah, I'm looking at you, LSU, because it feels like some of these teams that may have procrastinated, some of these teams that may have been waiting until the last minute to be able to sign some of these guys, they might be absolutely lucking out right now because while so many teams have spent their NIL funds and don't have any roster spots, a team like LSU is actually now in a great spot.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me wonder if Will Wade had sort of an inclination that this was going to happen. Obviously, the 5-year eligibility thing had been talked about for a while now. And, I think college head coaches have a pretty good read on what could potentially be coming down the line in terms of new rules, new things that they've got to kind of maneuver in the landscape. And look, I don't think there's anybody out there that knows how to kind of play on the fringes quite like Will Wade in terms of just, getting his roster together and looking in places that no one else will look to. I mean, it's not like all of a sudden all these guys who are getting eligibility back, it's not like they're chopped liver. I mean, I look at a guy like AJ Storr who could potentially do 5 schools in 5 years if that happens. Jalen Washington from Vanderbilt's another guy. Both those guys have the talent to play at the D1 level and can be big contributors. I look at LSU, and I'm sure they look at either one of those players and say that could be a fit. We're still waiting on an RJ Luis decision. I'm pretty sure. I can't imagine that has come down. And so we'll wait in LSU. They're definitely lurking in the water as they always are, and or as Will Wade always is. But yeah, I think the Tigers right now, especially with how deep their NIL runs, I would not be surprised to see them kind of throw around quite a few bucks as the portal to that brand new league.
Yeah, I mean, man, we've got a lot of wildness that is going on right now. We've got a lot of teams that maybe were sort of waiting until the last minute to be able to get the job done, looking at ULSU, but man, they are looking out right now as Curtis Rogers, who does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports, is joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And I'm not sure how you look at things, but I think the teams that are really going to be the biggest winners, other than perhaps Gonzaga getting Donovan Dent, are these teams that are just bringing back a guy like Braden Carrington. He was on Wisconsin last year. There's rumors that he's still practicing with the team, and he might just go right back to Wisconsin. We saw Xavier be able to get back Philip Borovichinen. I think that was big for them. MJ Collins staying with his coach in Jared Calhoun over at Cincinnati. These are the teams I think benefit the most because while it's going to be great to be able to get in a fifth-year guy and a lot of experience, again, I am concerned about some of these teams that sign some of these guys with the eligibility, with the just chemistry concerns. Meanwhile, for some of these teams like Cincinnati and Xavier, the chemistry is already there.
For sure. And I think that's a big thing. And there is a lot to be said about bringing back a lot of your roster from year over year, and especially in a landscape of college basketball where everybody is changing schools every single season. I think it does mean a lot to bring back guys. I mean, you look at what UConn has built under Dan, not a lot of turnover in that program year over year. They have gotten some pretty big contributors in terms of the transfer portal for sure, but more often than not, Dan Hurley has been able to get guys to re-up with UConn year over year. Arizona over the last couple of years has gotten guys to buy in and put in 2-3 years in that program in order to succeed. And Purdue is a program where they've gotten tons and tons of guys to come back. Michigan State's another one. So I look at a lot of these programs, Greg, and I think there is something to be said about keeping the guys there and keeping them together, because very few teams go the Michigan route of last year where they recruited a bunch of guys that were kind of, I wouldn't say mercenaries, but definitely like went after the best of the best in the transfer portal. And that was one way to build out a championship roster, and they did an incredible job. And obviously Axel Lendeborg was a difference-making player for that program. But also I think more often than not, teams are going to want to have their guys year in and year out rather than just a brand new roster every single season.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And it's going to be a very fascinating year in general in college basketball because right now we've got roster building happening in August. Don't see that very often. Honestly, you never see that. And we have seen a lot happen in college basketball over the last few weeks, Curtis. Since we last talked, we've seen 100 million billion moves. We've seen a few coaching changes. And is there a team or two that, with everything that we've been seeing over the last few weeks, maybe it's someone that got in one of these players as a fifth-year guy. Maybe it's just a different team in general. But is there a team or two that you're just starting to warm up on and you're feeling more bullish about them as the offseason goes along?
Well, I mean, you look at just kind of the landscape of college basketball right now. I think, the Big Ten finally getting that monkey out back last year and being able to get back to a championship level program. I think, honestly, you look at Illinois, that's a team where they have so many great players in that program, and they've been a program that has not been afraid to go international, which I think it's a portion of the recruiting that I think gets overlooked because so often teams kind of shy away from that. But also, look, it has worked wonders for them. And look, I think what they've been able to build there with Andrei Stojakovic, David Merkovich, you got Tomislav Ivisic, like you've got a lot of guys, Zvonimir Ivisic as well. I think that Illinois team could be among the teams going for a national championship this next season. Especially in a Big Ten that is going to be competitive again. I really like the Fighting Illini. I like what they have built there, and I really think that making it to the Final Four last year was something that that program has really been hoping for a long time, and they've been able to get back there. I expect them to be very competitive again this upcoming season. Yeah, you're still going to have Michigan being a good team, I think, even though you don't have Dusty May. They still were able to retain a lot of the talent that was there in that program. You've got Michigan State as well in the Big Ten. It's going to be a competitive year for everybody in the Big Ten. USC is another program as well that could make some noise. I think they're going to have a bounce back year for that. Right, yeah, the Golden Gophers. It's going to be a crazy season in the Big Ten, but I think Illinois is a program, Greg, that I'm really excited to see what they can do. Again, coming off of a year where they had so much momentum, making it all the way to the Final Four. Brad Underwood, a really, really good coach for sure. So that's a team, that's a program that I've got my eye on right now.
I do as well. It is going to be a wild season in college basketball. We don't even know these rosters at this point. It's August. I've never been in a situation like this, but Curtis, as we know, the sports calendar never is calm. Like we just saw the Dodgers fleece the Detroit Tigers. You're out there in Seattle where the Mariners have an interesting next 48 or so hours. Things are amazing with the Seattle Seahawks trying to defend their Super Bowl title, and they are getting set for training camp, so you're a busy man. Let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, we got a lot going on up here in the Pacific Northwest. SeattleSports.com, the Seattle Sports YouTube page is where you want to go. A lot of reaction this week to the Washington State basketball rivalry, the Apple Cup of Hoops, getting put on pause for the first time in about a century. Realignment ruins a lot of good stuff, Greg, and unfortunately, that was one of the casualties of it this year. Hopefully they can renew that rivalry going forward, but that was a big story up here within the last week. So some reaction to that. And then also, yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, @akidfromkent. Greg, always happy to hop on with you. Who knows what college basketball is going to look like the next time we talk, but I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about next time we're talking some college ball.
Yep, no question about it. Nothing like some good, clean family fun, taking a look at college basketball. Our guy does such an amazing job looking at this amazing sport. A big thanks to Curtis for joining me on Cuss Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Coming next, we've had about 20 players entering the transfer portal. I will run down that list of guys for you next. Side edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at cbbanalytics.com. That is cbbanalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Cuss Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops and now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It's always a pleasure to be joined by our man Curtis Rogers, who does such amazing work over at 710 Seattle Sports, taking a look at what we're all getting in this great game of college basketball. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights. He did so once again today. So a big thanks to Curtis for joining me in the last segment. Now we're just going to give you a roundup of what we've seen from college basketball here over the last 24 or so hours, with the injunction allowing all these guys to be able to go out there and be in the transfer portal. We saw Mustafa El Montequil be one of those guys. He was over at Jacksonville State last year, 19.5 points, 7 boards. Not a guy that's really going to bomb it from three, but was good at Louisiana 2 seasons ago. he's now out there. I revealed the guys that we had yesterday, like the Jalen Washingtons, AJ Storrs of the world. So these are just in addition to what we saw yesterday. Alfred Worrell, he was over at Morgan State last year. He was averaging 17.5 points per game. I don't think that he's going to be returning to Morgan State before I do my predictor or finish for the MEAC here in the next 24 to 48 hours. He's now in. Dylan Hunter, he was over at Clemson last season, 7.5 points, 3.5 boards, 3 assists, solid player. He's in. Joe Tipton, he, by the way, had a nice list of guys, so this is helping me out quite a bit on this because, man, it is wild what we're seeing with all these guys that are entering in right now. But you also have Tikai Simpkins, 12.5 points per game last season. He was able to dole out 2.4 assists per contest. He should be getting a 5th year of eligibility, so now he is in the transfer portal. Nick Graves, he's a guy that was averaging about 11 points, 3 boards, 4.5 assists per contest over at Creighton. He's now in the fold as well. Like, it's wild. Riley Kugel, 14.5 points, 3 boards, 2.5 assists. He was over at Central Florida last year. He spent some time over at Florida. List goes on and on. He's now in. Ozias Sellers from St. John's, 10.5 points per game. He's in. Mo Odom, 16.5 points, 5.5 assists per contest. He's in the portal. Obviously, Donovan Dent is, and right now he has a do not contact tag. So that makes things all the more fun as well. You've got Jaden Henley. He is a guy that was averaging 17.5 points, 5.5 rebounds per game, and he is going to be entering the transfer portal. He was over at Grand Canyon last season. Denzel Aberdeen, it looks like he's got his 5th year of eligibility officially for Florida. That was a little bit of a question mark. He should have that. NJ Benson is in, 11.5 points, 7.5 rebounds per game over at DePaul. Like, you're just probably sitting there like, what the heck? There is just so much that is going on right now, but these are the guys that are right now entering in the transfer portal. I believe we've already got one commitment as well. CJ Shaw is another guy. He was averaging double figures over at Old Dominion, and he was a absolute baller over at Maryland Eastern Shore 2 seasons ago. Josh Omajafo has entered into the transfer portal. Mark Mitchell has as well. And then CJ Jones. He's a guy that it looks like he's going to be heading on over to Pacific. I could have this wrong. This is via verbal commits, but for CJ Jones, this is going to be a really interesting spot for him, uplifting a Pacific team that was actually quite good last season, and when he was at Illinois Chicago a few seasons ago, was averaging 11.5 points, 4.8 assists per contest. He shot 38% from 3 last 2 years over at Kansas State. Really didn't find his footing. 2 years ago, 5.5 points per game. Last year was just a dumpster fire for Kansas State, but he was averaging 3.5 points per game. So, he's a guy that can be able to go in there right away, be able to give this team some good production. So, all of a sudden, Pacific out there in a WCC that no longer has Gonzaga. Am I saying they're going to be a favorite or anything like that? No, but at the same time, they really elevate with that as well. And then we also saw Malik Messina Moore. He was a guy that was averaging over at Xavier last season in that neighborhood about 11 points, 3 boards, 4 assists per game. He heads on over to Illinois State. I just done my projector or finish for Illinois State. I had them number 1 to start with. This is absolutely massive for them. Like, now they've got a guy that's really able to run the point. It's an Illinois State team that brings back so much from a season ago. Like, holy crud. We are getting a lot that is happening in the transfer portal right now. A team I was already bullish on in Illinois State, well, they add another nice piece right there, and we've got a few other guys that have entered in the transfer portal as well. Some of the guys I really wasn't seeing in terms of some of those court cases. Barry Dunning Jr. is another guy that is now in the transfer portal. Keep in mind, I'm trying to do my best to be able to keep things straight as well. So if you're sitting there like, wow, this is a lot of information, this is overwhelming, that is all of us right now. And for Barry Dunning, 12.5 points, 6 boards per contest last season over at Pittsburgh. He was a mid-33 point shooter, so he's another guy. Kobe King, he was over at Utah State last season. He's now in the transfer portal. I have to wonder if Cincinnati is going to try to get on him, much like they did MJ Collins. He only averaged like 7.5 points per game last season, shot 39.5% from 3, but had some experience over at Butler, Tulane, St. John, so he's going for 5 different schools in 5 years, just like AJ Storrs right now. Jawan Maxey is a guy that's now in the transfer portal as well. For Maxey, I don't know if he's really going to get signed by anyone big. He was over at Ball State last year. He was averaging about 6.5 points per game, but when he was over at Youngstown State, he was a double-figure scorer. Maybe that was just a little bit of a bad fit for him. Additionally, you've got Cam Corrin, who he has been in college basketball for seemingly an eon. He's now in the transfer portal after last year over at Pittsburgh. He was averaging 13.5 points, 7 boards, shot 37% from 3-point range. So, you've got so many impact players right now. We're starting to see some of these teams be able to dive in, so I'm going to do my best to be able to So keep it all straight moving forward, and I'm going to try to make this the greatest college basketball season of all time. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, LRCM, the name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire on whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. No shortage of news happening right now. Still, like I said, going to be continuing on with some of these conference preview podcasts, but they get a little bit more of a backseat. We're going with more of the smallest conferences right now, so that way there's going to be as little, shall we say, a turnover as possible. And typically, when we get done with those smaller conferences, then we can take a look at a little bit more of the big boys. So big thanks to Curtis for joining me in the second segment. Again, Curtis Rogers doing great work over at 710 Seattle Sports. I'm with you guys every single day on this podcast. We're up over 2,440 straight days without a missed podcast, and I hope that will be what's getting them out. Thank you.